Now, it seemed like you guys really liked the video where I interviewed my parents. We sat down and discussed all the reasons that they decided to retire in Durango, all the pros and cons of retiring in Durango, and we went into much more detail there. In this video, we're gonna sit down with my parents again and kind of do a part two, but talk about something much different and talk about the differences of the area that they built in, the Edgemont subdivisions, why they liked that area, why they decided to build there, and then the cons of that area and why they ultimately decided to sell that home that they custom built, and why they decided to move to the southern or southeast area of Durango. All right, we are back with my parents. Thanks for joining me again. And so you guys lived in Edgemont Meadows, which is about 12 minutes east of downtown Durango, and now you live just across from the Three Springs area, east of Durango. So I'd like to get your perspective on the differences, just the nuances and the differences of why you chose to live there, and then why you chose to leave there and move to this area. And then after that, we'll dive into some other areas, but we'll really focus on those two areas, just compare and contrast. So Dad, if you want to start first, just kind of give your pros and cons.
I think when we came to Durango back in 2017, we were starting to look for houses. We really couldn't find anything on the market at that time that we could move into easily and that fit our needs. And so we started looking around for land to buy that we could build on. So we had looked at a number of different areas, and I think what sold us on the Edgemont area over, say, the area that would be like the Shenandoah Estates is that there was a little more infrastructure for the community. There were walking trails, there were, proposed a number of different things that amenities like the fly fishing on the Florida River and other things that we really liked.
By the way, guys, if you're even thinking about moving to Durango or Southwest Colorado, I'm a licensed realtor here in Durango and Southwest Colorado. Love to help you with all of your real estate needs and be a resource for you here in Durango. Give me a call, text or email, days, nights, weekends. We've got your back when it comes to moving here to Durango and Southwest Colorado. Also more than happy to hop on a Zoom call and go over a map with you and show you some areas that might best fit you after going through your criteria and what you're looking for. Let's jump back into the video.
Now, of course, when we went in there into that subdivision of Edgemont Meadows, we were the second or third house to be built, and it was relatively quiet, but over the next 4 or 5 years we underwent a ton of construction that was going on in our area. The housing was being built out, all the lots were sold, and just about 100% of what we had in our subdivision had filled up. And we discovered that a couple of things that we weren't really prepared for. One was we were on the back of a 2-acre green belt, which was okay. You could look across that green belt and see everybody's backyards, but I wasn't necessarily prepared for the fact that almost everybody in our community had a dog, and they were using that green belt as a dog run. There would be 10 to 12 dogs with their owners out there every night, and I wasn't really mentally embracing that form of part of my retirement, because I do a lot of reading and have a lot of quiet, and I like just kind of processing things on the back porch, and that just was a little too disruptive to where I was at.
Sure.
And I think the other thing that we talked about in your other videos is the fact that, we were in the pines, but we didn't really realize how much pine trees really shed their needles. And even though we bought gutter shields, which really helped to keep our gutters free of needles, what I found is the pine needles would accumulate on the roof, and so I would feel like I need to get up on the roof and just blow those things off because there were so many that accumulated. And then, of course, being in the pine trees, pollen at certain times of the year was just thick on our back porch. And I discovered that over time, I just seemed like I was developing more and more allergies. I was coughing more and having more problems in that house. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back is just that, as you get a day older, you realize that you don't have physical capacity to move tons of snow every winter. That where we saw the last snow coming in, and we talked about this in some of our other videos with just the idea that there is so much snow there, and it's becoming more and more difficult to push through the berms at the end of your driveway that are being left by the road crew, and then having to get the roof cleared off, and not necessarily wanting or finding people who could do that with a reasonable amount. So we started looking around for something at a little lower elevation, and we knew that south of Durango the elevation dropped. It's obvious by the types of plants that are there that there's a drier climate there, less moisture. So we wanted to see if we could find something in this part of town, or even we were willing to go even further south, I think, than we did, or southeast than we did. Yeah. The advantages for us moving is we were able to find a property that we were on 1/4 of an acre in Edgemont, and here we're up to close to 4 acres. Obviously that we still have neighbors, but we're not entertaining them in our backyard every night. And we have a place for our dog now to run freely. He loves it here because he can get out and go and do a lot of things. And of course, we had a mild winter this winter, so it really was not a good comparison, but we only had to do our driveway once this year. I had to have somebody come in and open up our driveway. It's a lot bigger than what we had before. So I think those are probably the pros and cons. Now, obviously, the other thing that was really good for us, and I think this was a good move, was the fact that now we are just a hop, skip, and a jump away from the hospital. We're right by our primary care providers. We're just probably 6 or 7 minutes from the airport, probably that far from Home Depot and Walmart. In terms of the proximity to the kinds of things we need, I can ride my bike across the street and come right into the Three Springs mountain bike area. So, I mean, it has a lot more stuff for what we like. I think I'll miss the fishing opportunities that I could just hike from our home to go fishing if I wanted to. I think it is really beautiful in the Edgemont area with all of the pine trees, but we moved to a place now where we have a pretty nice view of the La Plata mountain range, which we never had in Edgemont. And we're getting a lot more ambient sunshine that's coming into the house we're living in now. The other house was, because there were so many pines, we didn't get the sunlight that we really wanted in our house. And we're so kind of really hooked on just getting more southern light and having a brighter living space. And what we were able to find was just amazing. The views are amazing, the windows and the architecture. The only drawback about what we feel about this house was, by designing and building your own house, you are able then to decide whether or not a one-story place is what you really need as you age, which most people want. We found a house that met our needs, but it's a 2-story house, which we never in our wildest dreams thought we would buy a 2-story house. But when we got here and we realized the things that we really wanted in our Colorado home were more light and more views, we then decided, well, okay, we can tough it out for 10 years or so, and then we'll have to go back and decide whether or not we need to reevaluate that and move again. Or maybe, God willing, we'll have good health and we won't have to worry about the stairs, and it's actually going to be, as you've so aptly pointed out, it could actually be something that would help us to have better fitness as we get older, as we are doing those stairs every day. And they're not a ton of stairs, it's just enough to go. So I think that's probably all I have to say on that. So I don't know, Angie, I didn't mean to steal any of your thunder, but I wanted you to have an opportunity to say how much you feel like there's a difference in this house and the other house in terms of the kitchens or the other amenities that you found around here.
Well, you had some good points there. When you're looking for a house in Durango or in any mountain town, make sure you check out the noise level, because in Edgemont Meadows, we could hear the traffic on Highway 240, and we were pretty close to it. We were 4 blocks, maybe 3 or 4 blocks from the highway, but in the house you couldn't hear it. But when we were sitting outside, it was just in the background, and there was not a whole lot of traffic, but enough that you could pick that up.
That's a great point.
And now that we're south of Highway 160, we are a third of a mile, maybe.
It's probably a 1/4 mile or less.
Yeah, and when we're outside, it's a bit. You hear it. You can't drown it out. unless you have the music blaring
yeah.
outside. But the view makes up for that. And we're up higher elevation a little bit from around us. We're kind of on a little hill. And so we can see the trees. Inside the house, we can't hear the traffic. But outside, so pay attention to that. I'm thinking of fire mitigation. That was one big thing with having pine needles on your roof. And one reason why he wanted to get them off, not only to protect the roof, but if you go to some websites and learn about wildfires, that's one way your house is going to catch on fire is those embers going onto the roof and catching those pine needles right away. In Edgemont, it was what, 11 miles from downtown, you said?
12 minutes, 12, 13 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But from the edge of town, when you are leaving the buildings and the businesses, it was just 6 miles east. Edgemont Meadows is at mile marker 6 on 240. And so didn't seem like that far. It was a pretty drive in and out of town, but it didn't seem that far.
With that comes the snow. I know we talked about this in other videos,
Yeah.
but I do feel like you guys it's a lot more comfortable to drive to town in the snow if we had a day where we got a lot of snow from this area versus that area.
Yes, because you're higher and
At Edgemont.
yeah, Edgemont.
The other thing is that the roads coming down from Edgemont are shaded, and they don't, the snow
More ice
doesn't melt
patches.
as well. So where we are now, where we're just right by 160, that's pretty heavily trafficked for one thing. So it's harder for the snow to stay, and then I think they do a better job of making sure that because of all that traffic, that there's more ice mitigation that takes place in that. I think, the thing is, if like where we lived in the Meadows, if you really like community and you like a lot of kids and stuff, that's a great place because there's a lot of younger families there that have kids, which it's great if you have kids. And
There were some retired families.
There
too.
were, but all I'm saying though is if you're coming at it from that
good
angle
mix.
and you wanted your kids to have other playmates and whatnot, I think that's a great place. The one point that we've had, again, pros and cons. Now that we have this property here, it was originally, this house is an older house, and so we had to do renovation, a lot of renovation, built in 1995 or so, and the property really hadn't been touched for the last, almost 30 years, and so we had a lot of overgrowth. We have a lot of, it's great because there's just a lot to work with, but it's a lot of work to get in there and clean up 3 or 4 acres. It's not cheap, and you have to plan accordingly. If you can't do it all at once, you have to do it in phases. And one of the things we did is we had part of our stuff we had put into wood chips so that we could use that in the garden to make paths, and then we're using the wood chips to hopefully make some cross-country ski or snowshoeing trails that will be usable in the winter time. And then, as you know, your kids coming over, and when they get a little old enough with their little bikes to do stuff on our property is really a plus. That's all doable. That's where your cost balance is. You're going to have more that you're going to put into your lot here, where when you have a big HOA taking care of all the green spaces at Edgemont. Plus they have the really nice walking trails at Edgemont that are really well maintained, and you can use, there's all between the timbers and the ranch and all the different subdivisions in Edgemont. You have access to all of those trails living up there, although they don't like you riding your bike on their trails. So, if you're a mountain biker, you really have to go at least down the highway, probably a mile at least down the highway coming into Durango to get to the Horse Gulch dirt road system that a lot of more advanced bikers really enjoy biking on, which is not that big a deal. There's a lot of bikers here, so I think it's more, what you want to do. The proximity here for us is great because like I said, I hop on my bike and in less than just 4 or 5 minutes I can be over right there at the trailhead of where the other biking system is. So
one other thing that I loved in Edgemont, I loved having so many pine trees around, just nature, and we didn't have that before.
Nice.
And we came from New Mexico to Colorado, and I loved it. But then it got to the point where we didn't have as much sun, and we'd visit other neighbors over there, and some of them had windows positioned in different areas. And I thought, gosh, I wish we would have done that when we built this house. So when you're looking for a house, if you like sunlight, make sure you have windows on every single side of your house. In Edgemont Meadows, we had our living room in the center of the house, and it didn't get the sun that we wanted. So we would always have our living room to where it has some outdoor windows, and it kind of got a little cluttered. I'm not cluttered, cluster feeling.
Sure.
Because you just couldn't see. I missed in Edgemont Meadows. We couldn't see the sunrise or sunset, and unless you left, then But it's like it should be nice to watch
Good point. You're
the
very
sky and
tucked in.
Yeah, you're very tucked in.
What did you think about? I know you didn't particularly like walking on the trails. What did you think about walking on the streets
Why didn't I like walking on the trails?
Well, because sometimes they were muddy, or But you did tend to walk on the streets there. Do you feel like? How did you feel about walking on the streets there versus where we are now?
Well, in Meadows, in Edgemont, I could just walk faster on pavement.
Sure.
So if, like, some of those trails around Edgemont take you off trail, or you're kind of you're on trail, but it's hilly and a little bit more rocky, so I just couldn't do my exercise walking in that area. But it was there if you want it, and the pavement was there. Here, we're on a cul-de-sac, like a half a mile long cul-de-sac, and so it's just walking up and down the streets. I would prefer if I to do a lot of walking, to either go to a friend's house.
Just go to Three Springs.
Yeah, just find another area to walk, or even along the river walk.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
So the other thing, though, to tie that in, I'll flip it and say, for those people who are watching that might be into trail running, I mean, Edgemont was pretty classic for trail running.
Awesome.
There's all of the trails. I mean, I loved it when I was doing that, and you could, I mean, it was awesome. I didn't, right out your back door, and you've got, like Jonathan said, 10 miles of select trails that are well maintained and wood chips. They're not. I mean, sure, there's going to be a few rocks. I mean, you just have to watch where you're running, like anywhere off trail, or off grid, in a sense that you could trip if you don't get your feet up high enough. But most of the trails are pretty smooth, and I think it's a great place if you have dogs and want to go running with your dog. I mean, they do expect you there that's probably one thing as compared to if you were out in the middle of nowhere, you really have to do due diligence and pick up your dog poop, but they've been very nice about putting dog poop stations everywhere, so you can bag it and put it in little stations. And
another thing about the dogs is, like, the 2-acre green belt that was behind our house at Edgemont. There were signs: keep your dogs on a leash, or under your control. Right. Well, the people didn't obey those rules, and they let their dogs. They could come when they were called or something, but they would still go off the trail, and so they just they overran all the vegetation in that area, and it just became dirt. So another thing I wanted to say about fire and fire mitigation, you do have to think about that up here, and the cul-de-sac that we live on right now only has one entrance and one exit. So if there was a fire between our house and the road, the way out of here, we could not drive out. We're going to talk to some neighbors. We just moved here last summer. At the very end of the cul-de-sac, there is a possible place between two houses that looks like you could possibly at least run out, or possibly drive out, because there's another street not too far.
The nice part about this south area is it's a lot less forested than Edgemont and that east area, so there's less chance of fire, but it still exists.
Right.
Well, that brings up another topic of home insurance.
Insurance, definitely.
We had a certain insurance company for 40 years wherever we lived. We moved. Even in Edgemont, that insurance company would still covered us. When we moved to this place, they would not. One reason was because we're in a brush fire zone. Instead of, we've got trees, but it's like this is less chance of fire here than in Edgemont, but they covered us there, but not here. But our insurance company just recently, we changed companies, and it just doubled. Right now, it's $4,000 a year.
No, it's more than that, actually.
I'll have to send you somebody. So I do have other companies that I've shopped where they were close to that number in Edgemont, and then we found another company that was like 2,500.
Oh.
So there are companies out there. It's just it is very
That's-
tricky, and you just have to shop them a lot, as you know.
And I think it might just be a nationwide thing, or just in high-risk fire zones like California. The insurance companies
Right, it's
really
getting way
shot
worse.
up, and here it shot up. A lot of people here couldn't find insurance. So
Well, and I
look
think
into that.
the other thing that I noticed yesterday when I was doing some looking at insurance just online, I found that they're using an average rebuild cost if you have a fire. That's the other thing to keep in mind. I mean, it's like you were telling me, Jonathan, that the rebuild costs now are over $500 a square foot, which I don't know if everybody knows that. That's what the...
Casey,
Yeah, I talked with an agent this morning or emailed, and he did not know that yet. So at this point, when you're talking $500 a square foot, even with a 2,500 square foot house, that's $1.25 million to rebuild your house. Right. Okay, and so that doesn't. I mean, of course, that's excluding the land that you
right.
have on top of that, which gives you
And all
the
your
value, but
possessions
your
in the
possessions
house.
and everything, right? So the problem with that is, I think the cap, at least that I was looking at, it's like they're capping it at 1.55, 1,055,000 as for the house, and then it becomes a special deal when you go above that price, because they're not looking at the costs to rebuild that we have to pay here locally.
Right. Looking at nationwide costs.
Yeah,
probably.
Exactly. I don't know how they do it, but it's like this has been an eye-opener for us, and I can't remember if we talked about this before, and I think we did. Yeah, I don't want to repeat myself too much on here, but
gotta watch the other videos.
The gutter,
right.
we were just talking about gutter costs between, say, Nebraska and here.
Right, right.
And here it's $25 a foot, and Nebraska's $7 a foot. So think of the idea of how much it costs to renovate. I mean, you think, okay, we actually got out of Edgemont, and we had a profit over 5 years, but we had to put all that profit into the renovations of this house that was, built in 1995, which didn't have. I mean, it still had the 1995 furnace, the 1995 water heater, 1995 appliances. I mean, everything, the flooring, everything, countertop. So part of it is how much. If you're going to go in, are you going to want to renovate something? You can find older properties, probably a much better deal.
Right. And to that point, there's so many homes, just to touch on that and touch on what you guys looked at, because you probably looked at quite a few homes, but you're seeing there's so many homes that are funky in the sense of, even if it's a new build or built 5 years ago, it's just a weird floor plan. Like we looked at one where you go in on the main floor, but then it's a split level. So we have like a lot of split levels.
Yeah.
Can you guys kind of speak to that and your experience of homes we looked at? Just kind of the nuance of that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think. Would you like to answer that? You haven't talked much, honey. I can let you. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, it's personal preference. Right. Everybody has different preferences and different likes, and even different eras of what you want your house to. So there's a lot of real modern homes that are, I don't know the terms.
Yeah, they're just modern.
Yeah,
more modern.
And so we just kind of go away from that. We like like Rand said earlier, we prefer a one-story with a nice porch and a view and some pine trees and mountain feel to it. So it's just your preference, what you like. Just go to all different neighborhoods if you're looking for homes, and get online too and see what ahead of time you want. Do you want a garden? Do you want just so many things to think about?
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead.
I think a lot of the older houses here do not have the open floor plan that we were looking for.
Open.
One of the things that sold us on the house that we're in now, one, it's an open floor plan, and two, it had really good bones in terms of, I liked the architect and what they did with the windows and whatnot. And you can't necessarily find that in a lot of the older houses. The ceilings are not as tall. And it's so, it's like downtown on 3rd Street. You get a lot of these houses. Oh, it's great. I live in downtown Durango, and they're $1 million homes, but they're just little houses with maybe
no view.
You have 8-foot ceilings, and And I don't know, it's the idea that you're living in town, which again, if that's where you want to live, I originally thought that would be the perfect place because I didn't want to get rid of the car and just say, okay, I'm going to ride my bike to the grocery store, be the, I was like, okay, this is cool, but I realized that no, I can't afford to be downtown at that time. And now I look back and say, well, I don't know if I'd want to live downtown only because just the quality of life at this point, I think if I was older, perhaps another 10 years, 15 years older, living right where I could just walk to something and not have to even drive would be probably great. But again, a lot of these homes are 2-story homes in town and climbing stairs, or 3-story homes for that matter. We've looked at some in town that were 3-story and they've done a nice job of renovating them, but they're still, you can tell they were built 100 years ago or whatever. It's not,
still got older
it's not the same.
appliances sometimes.
Yeah, it's not the same. I think you said it right. The challenge is being able to find the floor plan that works for you and that you can get all your belongings in. If you're a light packer, then there's going to be a lot of floor plans that are going to work. You can probably work with any, but
one thing about having a great room, which is the living room and the kitchen and dining room is all kind of one space. One problem with that I find is that you don't have the walls that you need to hang pictures, to put your piano against an interior wall, things like that. So, but we love openness and the tall ceilings. And stuff.
Well, and to your point with downtown, to just kind of talk about a few more specifics there, there's a lot less garages downtown. So you're either parking on the street or sometimes there's a guest house in the back, but the square footage is almost split up. So you might have 1,500 square feet and then an 800 square foot studio behind you, and you go through an alleyway to park just in your property in general.
Right.
So there's a lot more just smaller lot sizes, but you're right, like a lot older homes. So we sold one last year that was, they had to renovate everything, including water heater, furnace. I think they had one vent for heating. So it's just, there are a lot of things you got to go into besides just floors and paint and kitchen, to your point.
I think the other thing to think about too is if you're a person that owns an RV, keep in mind that in Edgemont they don't allow you to park your RV at your house. You have to either put it in a garage or you have to fork out the money to put it in a storage place. Where we're at with our HOA, they don't care. You can park your RV by the side of your house. Of course, with 4 acres, it's a lot different than right next to a 1/4 acre and having everybody do Camper City, and they don't let you park on the streets at Edgemont either.
Well, that was a rule, but everybody does.
Well,
they don't enforce it.
Well, yes and no. In the winter for sure they do because they need the snow plows to go through, and I know that I've heard of people being told that they need to get their stuff off the streets. So if you have guests and stuff, it's okay for a few days, but they don't want you parking long term on the street. And they don't want to see you parking long term in your driveway either if you've got something that's bigger than your garage door. So like we were thinking about buying a Sprinter van at one time, but it's like, well,
wouldn't fit
in the garage, and it was too big for us to park outside.
It was just too big. So I have looked into this though. You can have a Sprinter van, but granted, if you don't have the space, it's taking up your driveway. But I have looked into that recently in the HOA docs. You can. It's just, where do you put it?
Yeah, and I think that's probably changed a little bit, but again, because it looks more like a car, they're willing to go for it. But if it's a camper, or something you pull behind your car, they want that in the garage. So again, what do you do
just
with that kind of thing?
Weighing these, or you have a 3-car garage, and then you can park it.
Right. Well, in some of the Edgemont homes up there, I've noticed they are building 10-foot garage. Store, to be able to accommodate the bigger vehicles like that.
Right.
And let your realtor know what you want, to be specific with what you want, views or a few trees, but not surrounded by so many, because houses can be sold very quickly.
So and they're so different from area to area.
Yeah.
With that, let's jump into just hit on a few points of each other area. So essentially, if we break apart Durango, we've got your for everyone watching, we've got your lake area, Lemon Reservoir, Vicito area. Then you've got your mountain area around Purgatory. And then west, we already talked about south and east, and we already pretty much talked about in town. So if you guys don't mind hitting on just briefly your take on maybe why you didn't move to areas like the lake area, mountain area, and west, and just kind of touch on those, just a few thoughts on those.
We really liked Durango. Before we moved here, we vacationed here and camped in the area, things like that. And so we wanted to be in the Durango community. Vicito Lake is closer to Bayfield, and that's a good place to look also. If you don't have to be that close to Durango, that's a good area to look to. It's just 12 miles from where we live down the highway.
And I'll cut you off real quick and just say we'll throw up on the screen a couple videos that we did all about Bayfield. So if you want to learn more about that area, we'll do that as well.
Okay.
But
so we didn't move there or look there because we wanted to be closer to Durango.
Closer, yeah.
As far as west goes, we looked at Durango West. We felt a couple of things. One, Durango West is a nice community, but the property values, I should say, are lower. So basically the resale value is going to be lower than in Edgemont. So, at that point we felt that when we went into this and started building in 2017, I guess, late 2017, that the cost of building in Edgemont would offset and the profits would be greater going there than going to the west, only because if we were to move and have to sell our house, we would make a better profit. And I think that's true. I think people are wanting to the Edgemont properties for the reasons that we talked about. The Durango West properties are older and probably in need of more upkeep and upgrades, which again you want to keep in mind. I could be wrong, but I believe the Durango West as well as the Shenandoah estates are dependent on water from Lake Nighthorse.
Lake Durango.
Lake Durango for the west, but I think Lake Nighthorse for Shenandoah.
You're right.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to mention something too. In Durango West, there's a limit to how much water you can use, and then they start charging you more. So it's like 3,000 gallons. I will mention real quick that comparisons are somewhat similar in the sense of they do have a lot of trails throughout Durango West as well. So that is nice too.
Yeah. So I think part of it is, again, to me it just felt like we were further out of town at Durango West. I'm not sure the mileage, but it just felt further out.
About 10 minutes.
And we looked at what is it, Twin Buttes to build there, because there wasn't even houses there, but they were asking a lot more for the lots because they, and then you build in the city limits and you have a higher building permit cost by like $10,000 higher at least than in the county. And then again, going back to the water, I was a little concerned about water rights and whatnot, especially coming out of Lake Durango. That's tribally owned, and of course anything can be shut down at any time if the tribe decides to do that. And I'm like going, I don't want to do that. Plus the other thing about Shenandoah is if you go and look at the infrastructure or the roads that are there, they're really pretty shabby. I mean, they're paved, but they're going to need to spend, the homeowners are going to need to shell out a lot of money in the near future to repave that. Sure. And the HOA doesn't have the money, and it's going to come out of the pockets of those people that live over there. Beautiful homes, beautiful properties over there. It feels a little more isolated than Edgemont. There's not nearly as many people that are out there. But I really liked Shenandoah. We found a 3-acre lot that you might recall. We went and looked at that thing. I don't know how many times it's like, oh, that would have been a good place to build. But, in retrospect, it would have been a very shady spot because it had tons of pine trees.
Well, was it pine trees or more cottonwood?
No, they were pines, yeah. And, they get just as much snow there as Edgemont gets. And so
equivalent.
We looked at a place, though, up by, and Rafter J was another place we looked at. And they've got some really funky houses up there, the way they were built, and some of them are really cool, but they're just different.
Floor plans you don't, split level.
That's, so there's one I like the inside of it, but you drive into the house and you're in the garage and you have to climb all these stairs, really quite a few stairs to get up to the kitchen. And I'm like, I don't want to carry my groceries from up the stairs to get into the kitchen like that. But I think the Rafter J, of course, they're on dirt roads again, And in the winter, I was just a little concerned if you had really bad
higher elevation.
Higher elevation, you're either going to have mud or you're going to have ice, or you're definitely going to need 4-wheel drive, and you're going to need. This is going to be a lot more work living up there. And I thought, I'm not really ready to go that route. I feel like I'm tired looking at the place. Pretty in the summertime, but I could see, and that's the same with what's out on towards Lemon Reservoir. Is it the Florida Estates?
Lemon, yes.
It's on that. Yeah, there's
Florida
we looked at some houses out there, and same thing. It was just the dirt roads and the ups and downs.
We also looked while we were looking for this house. We knew we wanted to move further south from Edgemont.
Right.
So we looked at, I think it's Florida Meadows, about a mile on south on 172 is this community, and it just kind of, I want to say, like more meadows and acreage.
Rolling hills.
Yeah, it's good for horses. Large lots and a nice view of the mountains too.
Right, they're just around the corner from Pastoris Reservoir, so they back up to it, but there's no access to it except for maybe from one house.
Okay.
But yeah, they back right up to it, so that's really nice too.
Yeah, that would have been an advantage living over there, though.
We looked at a house there, and if we would have liked the house better, we would have actually moved there.
Yeah.
So
That's a great area. So then speak to just the mountain area a little bit around Purgatory, just your take on that and why you maybe didn't move that way.
Well, I thought the houses were priced pretty high out there. And again, we're not really ski bums. I like using the Nordic Center up there to cross-country ski. Cross-country or snowshoeing is great in there. Yeah. Good fly fishing. We talked about that. There are some places you can drive back in there a little, not necessarily all four-wheel drive going, but there's places you can go and get some really good fishing up in that area, and camping as well. If you like going that way, it's a little closer to Silverton, Uray, a lot of the higher elevation type of activities you could do in the summertime. I'm trying to think of the name of the community that's just a little bit, it's by James Ranch. They've got a golf course up there. And Glacier, yeah. So I mean, again, those were kind of priced out of our price range, and I think I don't think we could have gotten into that. I think it's kind of like the on the north side of Durango, up by Dalton Ranch. There's some really nice housing along that road that goes past Dalton Ranch back into
250.
On 250, yeah, there's some beautiful properties there, and I think that would have been a good place. I mean, again, for us, things were just not open. It's kind of the time you're wanting to move and what's available on the market. And one of the challenges that we had when we were looking in 2017, 2018 is something would come on the market and it would be like we lived 4 hours away and it was on the market, and by the time I was talking to a real estate agent about it, the same day even, they said, we already got an offer. And it's like, that's how fast houses were selling in Durango at that time. If it was even close to what we wanted. I mean, I remember one in particular that I really was like, wow. And I think they had an offer before they even put it on MLS, so, and I'm like going, wow, that's just, what's the point of, even trying to get an offer if you can't get your foot in the door. And it's not even that there was bidding wars or anything. It's just that they had an offer and it was already purchased because there was that much movement. I mean, that's the thing about Durango that's, at least I think, good in some ways, is that you really, I think it's an investment to come to Durango, even if you don't stay forever, just because it's a desirable place to live. And so I think that, for us, I don't know. I mean, in another 10, 15, 20 years, who knows, what's going to happen to you physically and whether or not, like we talked a little bit about lung capacity. And as we age, our lungs get a little less able to handle altitude. And in some people, they age faster than others with their lungs. And so what would it look like if you had to move, like the people we bought this house, they moved down to Prescott or Sedona area, and for a number of reasons, but I think that might have been one of them as well. It's just that, they were getting to the point where they just couldn't navigate. I think, the resale values here are really good, and no matter what you do, you could answer the question of how long do houses stay on the market in Durango, and I would say that if you're priced well, they don't stay on the market long.
Right. So that's really well said. So if they're priced well, they don't stay on the market long. And what I'll say, going back to what we talked about with the homes and how kind of there's a lot of funky layouts like we discussed and like you guys looked at when you were looking at this house. So many layouts that are kind of weird. So those homes typically stay on the market longer if it's just something that's tough for buyers to get over. But on average, we're right around that 50-day mark, 50 to 60 days. If it's just kind of priced kind of in the middle, kind of average, they're not priced competitively. Going back to what you were saying about finding homes that were just flying off the market, what I've done is I've worked with a lot of buyers in the last year. Just almost every single buyer that's reached out through YouTube has been out of town, Texas, Denver, Arizona, and they've reached out on homes like that. And what we've done is we've gotten out to the property, shot a video, shot a drone video for them, got it over to them, make the offer, and the agent knows they've seen it through the video walkthrough, and then they're accepting the offer. So just for everybody watching, that's what we've been able to do to overcome that.
That's wonderful.
And so think real quick, any final thoughts on just the major, maybe just the major differences that you saw, just the cliff notes, if you will, between those two areas, just going back to east versus south?
East versus...
Sunshine in the house.
Just the...
I'll say it feels a little warmer down here, although I'm not sure it is, but it is
less shade.
Yeah, less shade. Yeah, and that's not a big deal.
But it's more it's cooler.
I mean, I guess I would just capitalize on the fact that, look, where I am now, I've got better views. I've got more sunlight coming into this home. I have more property. You know, my property is not... It is going to appreciate as much as what's in Edgemont, but I'm real happy with where I live now, and I think that's the key point is where you're at. And you know, I guess I'll just throw this in as a side note. If you come into Durango and you do buy an older house and you want to get it move-in ready before you come in, I've discovered there's a cadre of people within Durango that there are good people in Durango that can really do a pretty darn good job, and it takes a while. That's the other side, is to figure out who those people are.
I mean, smaller businesses, you
know, people who can come in and they're reliable and they charge you reasonable prices. And so I think that's the key. Working with a good realtor, they're going to know. I know you don't like to recommend people, but I bet you could tell people, well, my parents used this person and they were really happy with them.
Absolutely.
And and I think that's key to having a good realtor. They have... Again, if you're buying a used property and you do have a lot of work, because like we discussed this, not everybody wants to move into a house that they have to put a lot of work into.
Right.
And so we were lucky in that we had some time to do some of that. And then unfortunately we had a COVID, outbreak in the midst of when we were remodeling. So that set us back. One of us, I think, got COVID and we didn't want to give it to anybody else working on the house, and then they had other jobs that they were in the middle of. So part of it is, it's life, you know. But
one thing I would like to add in dealing with people working for you, between that house in Edgemont and this house, a lot of people coming and going, different specialties of. Make sure that you get an itemized bid. Have them look ahead of time with what the cost will be for the materials and how much are they going to charge. Is that going to charge per hour labor or this larger amount for the whole job? And get it in writing. Get it in writing.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, thank you for giving those tips. I think those are really valuable. For you guys watching, if you're still watching, thank you for hanging on there. And I really appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to throw in the comments if you guys would like to see more videos like this and what you would like to hear specifically. If you're even thinking about moving to Durango, give us a call, text, email, days, nights, weekends. Licensed realtor here in Durango as well as Southwest Colorado. We'd love to help you with all of your real estate needs. And we'll see you next time. Bye.